deep dive today.
Oh, this is going to be a good one.
It is.
Yeah.
We're diving deep into the work and the insights of Dr. NARONGCHAI AKRASANEE.
A fascinating figure.
Yeah, he's a leading figure in Thailand's economic and trade development. And I think what's so cool about this is we're not just talking theory here.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
We're getting like a firsthand perspective from someone who's been
in the trenches.
in the trenches. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
From shaping policies to negotiating international agreements.
I think what's remarkable about Dr. NARONGCHAI is he really connects the dots between academic theory and practical policy,
Yeah.
and then the realities of international relations. So it's not just an observer. This is a man of action.
Exactly.
And his insights are really valuable, especially today as we're all kind of navigating this changing global landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. And his career spans decades, right?
Decades.
So we have this very unique window into Thailand's economic journey.
Yeah.
So let's dive in.
Let's do it.
And I think a good place to start is kind of chronologically following his narrative, starting with his early academic days.
Okay.
And there was a really big shift in economic thinking that was taking place
Yes.
at that time.
So his early work was really influenced by this big move away from protectionism towards export promotion.
Okay.
And he actually studied with
Wow.
prominent economists like Bella Balassa and Anne Kruger, who were very much proponents of open trade.
Yeah.
So this is also the time when institutions like the World Bank were also pushing this approach, especially in developing countries.
It wasn't a simple case of like one size fits all though, right?
Right, exactly. And Dr. NARONGCHAI actually mentions contrasting views like those of Professor Raoul Prebisch, who question whether the Bretton Woods system would really truly benefit developing countries.
Yeah, because that was the framework for international finance that was established after World War II.
Exactly. It was a big question at the time about the winners and losers. And I think that debate around the benefits and drawbacks of free trade for developing countries in particular was and still is a really complex one.
Oh, absolutely.
There's just no single path to success. And Dr. NARONGCHAI acknowledges that.
Yeah.
That countries really need to find the right balance between this openness and protecting their own interests.
Right. And this brings us to the idea of fair trade versus free trade.
Yes.
And Dr. NARONGCHAI points out that the concept of fair trade kind of gained traction because completely free trade was proving elusive, in practice.
In practice, yeah.
So what did he see as kind of the key differences?
Well, he argued that fair trade goes beyond simply reducing tariffs and these barriers.
Okay.
It's about creating a level playing field where developing countries have genuine opportunities to participate in global trade. And this includes things like transparency and trade rules, access to technology, access to markets, and addressing issues like labor standards.
And environmental protection.
So it's about ensuring that trade benefits all parties involved,
exactly,
not just the most powerful economies.
That's the idea.
And this ties into another, I think, really important theme that emerges from his work.
Yes.
The importance of regional cooperation.
Yes.
He sees it as this stepping stone, particularly for developing countries.
Absolutely. He draws inspiration from the European Union, which, started as this economic cooperation among a few countries and then evolved into this powerful bloc.
Right.
So he believes that regional integration can help developing countries gain scale, attract investment, and have a stronger negotiating position on the global stage.
And that's where ASEAN comes in.
Exactly.
Dr. NARONGCHAI was directly involved in its early days.
Oh, yeah.
And he describes how its initial focus was primarily political.
It was, and then it wasn't really until the mid-1970s that the economic aspect gained more prominence.
And he was actually part of the team that developed the first economic proposals.
That's right. For the first ASEAN summit.
Yes, in 1976.
Wow.
They were actually presented after the end of the Vietnam War.
Okay.
It was a time when the region was looking at how do we rebuild? How do we cooperate?
Right.
And so Dr. NARONGCHAI was there to help shape that economic agenda.
That's incredible, being in the right place at the right time.
That's right.
With the right ideas.
Exactly.
And one of the key outcomes of this economic cooperation was the establishment of the ASEAN Free Trade Agreement.
Yes.
Or FTA.
APA.
And Dr. NARONGCHAI was instrumental in this process.
Oh, absolutely.
And he doesn't shy away from all of the political maneuvering.
The wheeling and dealing.
The wheeling and dealing, that it required.
He's got a great anecdote about meeting with Indonesian Minister Hartarto.
Right.
Whose response to the free trade proposal was, Indonesia, no free trade.
Wow.
So, you can see these historical sensitivity and the diverse perspectives that existed within ASEAN.
That must have been a very challenging situation to navigate.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
How did he manage to overcome that initial resistance and get everyone on board?
A lot of diplomacy.
Okay.
A lot of consensus building.
Yeah.
Finding that common ground.
Right.
He emphasizes that for any major agreement to succeed, you need strong political backing.
Right.
It's not just about the economics. It's about understanding the political landscape.
Right.
Building that trust among all the parties involved.
That's a valuable lesson in itself.
I think so.
You need those political skills, that diplomacy.
You got to have it.
Alongside economic expertise.
It all works together.
What about FTA's impact after several decades?
Yeah. How's it doing?
Has it lived up to its promise?
Well, Dr. NARONGCHAI believes that it has been beneficial for ASEAN.
Okay.
It's fostered trade and economic integration within the region.
Okay.
However, he acknowledges that new challenges have emerged.
Okay.
Particularly with the rise of what are called non-tariff barriers.
Okay. Can you explain?
Or NTBs.
NTBs, yeah.
What are those?
Yeah, what are those and how do they differ from the traditional tariffs?
So NTBs are any measures other than tariffs that restrict trade.
Oh.
So things like quotas, import licenses, product standards, and even regulations related to environmental protection or labor rights.
Oh, wow.
They're a little bit more difficult to identify and address than tariffs.
Yeah.
Because they're often kind of embedded in these domestic regulations and policies.
It's almost like the goalposts have shifted.
They have shifted.
Yeah, and created new obstacles.
Exactly.
To free trade.
And he sees this as part of a broader trend.
Okay.
A reconfiguration of the global economic landscape.
So a more complex and fragmented world.
It is.
Where these regional blocks and these bilateral agreements might become even more important.
I think they will.
And this brings us to another key area of Dr. NARONGCHAI's expertise, the Asia-Pacific region.
Yes.
And the formation of APEC.
So he actually traces Thailand's involvement in APEC back to earlier initiatives, like the Pacific Trade and Development Conferences.
Okay.
These were informal gatherings of academics, policymakers, and business leaders from Pacific Rim countries, and they were discussing issues related to trade and development.
So kind of a precursor to APEC.
Exactly.
Laying the groundwork for regional cooperation.
And he highlights these key figures who are involved, like Dr. Thanat Koman, a very prominent Thai diplomat.
Yeah.
And these really influential Japanese academics and industrialists.
Okay.
Like Professor Saburo Okita.
You mentioned a behind-the-scenes role played by Japan.
Yes.
In APEC's formation. What were the motivations?
Well, Dr. NARONGCHAI suggests that Japan's interest in promoting this regional cooperation was really driven by a complex mix of factors. Yeah. There was a desire to promote market capitalism in the region. Maybe a little bit of guilt.
Oh, interesting.
Over their wartime actions. And also this belief in their own economic and technological superiority.
A fascinating mix of motivations.
It is.
Did this lead to any interesting debates or disagreements during APEC's formation?
Yeah, there's a funny anecdote about the debate over whether to include the word community in APEC's name.
Okay.
And the Chinese representative really objected to this.
Why?
Well, because they argued that the capital C could only signify communism.
Interesting.
Which clashed with APEC's market-driven principles.
Oh, wow. The weight of a word.
The weight of a word.
So they opted for cooperation.
They did.
To avoid any ideological baggage.
Exactly. It shows the sensitivities around these regional groupings. And you have to be careful. You have to navigate these political perspectives and priorities.
Sounds like a delicate balancing act.
It is.
Now, we've talked about ASEAN and APEC, which are regional groupings on a fairly large scale.
Right.
But Dr. NARONGCHAI also emphasizes the importance of a more localized layer of development.
Yeah.
And that is the Greater Mekong Subregion.
The GMS?
The GMS. Yeah. He sees this as that crucial first layer of economic integration.
Yeah, it's all about providing that market access and the scale that developing countries need to really succeed with export promotion.
Okay.
So he refers to it as this extended local market, complementing ASEAN and those broader Asia-Pacific initiatives.
So a kind of stepping stone to larger markets.
Exactly.
Allowing countries to test the waters,
That's right.
Build their capabilities.
And his focus on the GMS actually comes from his early work on industrialization.
Okay.
So his doctoral thesis, which he completed in the early 1970s, emphasized the need for both scale and market access for successful export-led growth.
Okay.
And he saw those elements present in the GMS, especially after the end of the Vietnam War.
But those plans were delayed by the Cambodia crisis, right?
They were for about a decade.
Wow.
But in the mid-1990s, the idea gained momentum.
Okay.
Thanks in part to the Asian Development Bank and Dr. Amnue Veeravan's interest in the region. Dr. Amnue was a prominent Thai economist and politician who saw the GMS as a key area for regional development.
And this led to the establishment of the Mekong Institute.
The MI.
The MI.
Yes. It was a collaborative effort involving Dr. Amnue, Dr. Wanchai Wattanasap, who was the president of Khon Kaen University at the time, and even the New Zealand government, which provided that initial funding.
Wow.
And Dr. Narongchai himself has served as the chairman of MI's steering committee for over 2 decades.
That's incredible.
He's seen it evolve into a full-fledged intergovernmental organization.
That's amazing. He clearly sees the GMS as a vital piece of the puzzle.
Oh, yeah.
For Thailand's economic development.
For sure.
Now, let's talk about the practicalities of GMS cooperation.
Okay, let's get practical.
What are the key aspects of connectivity that he highlights?
Well, he divides it into 2 main areas. Physical connectivity and institutional connectivity.
So like the hardware.
The hardware.
And the software.
And the software of regional integration.
I like that.
Yeah.
So physical connectivity is about building the infrastructure.
Exactly.
The roads, the bridges, the airports.
All of that.
That link these countries together.
That's the key.
And Dr. Narongchai believes that the GMS has made significant progress in this area.
It has.
Particularly with improved road and air transport links.
Absolutely.
But he also emphasizes that it's not just about building it.
Right.
It's about making sure it's efficient.
Efficient.
And cost-effective.
Got to make it work.
Yeah. And that's where institutional connectivity comes in.
Exactly. And this is about streamlining those cross-border processes, harmonizing regulations, and making it easier for goods, services, even people to move freely.
So that includes things like simplifying customs procedures,
yeah,
coordinating transport regulations,
absolutely,
facilitating the movement of migrant workers.
Huge.
That's a big one.
It is.
And this is where the concept of economic corridors comes in.
Yeah, he contrasts economic zones, which are those geographically defined areas focused on specific industries, with these economic corridors, which are transport routes, designed to facilitate the efficient movement of goods and people. He argues that economic zones haven't been as successful in Thailand because they often lack the necessary infrastructure and connectivity.
So it's not just about where things are produced,
right,
but how efficiently they can be transported to markets.
Got it.
He uses the Northeastern Corridor.
Great example.
As an example.
Yeah, which connects Thailand's eastern seaboard to Laos, Vietnam, and China.
Wow.
Huge potential there for logistics-driven development.
And he draws this distinction between investment in logistics and investment related to logistics.
Exactly. So investment in logistics is about creating those efficient transport networks. But then that can attract related investment like warehousing, distribution centers, services for those involved in the logistics industry. So it's like this positive feedback loop. Where improved logistics attracts more investment, further improves logistics.
So this kind of ripple effect.
It is a ripple effect.
Where efficient logistics attract this cluster of related economic activity.
You got it.
And he links this back to China's Belt and Road Initiative.
Yes.
Seeing the GMS as strategically positioned to benefit.
Very much so.
From those investments.
He believes that while the Belt and Road Initiative is primarily driven by China's own interests, it can also provide opportunities for GMS countries
to improve their own infrastructure and connectivity.
Exactly, as long as they're strategic.
Yeah, strategic in their engagement.
That's the key.
Okay, so corridors are the way forward.
It seems to be.
But what about financing these massive infrastructure projects?
Well, Dr. Narongchai is a firm believer in market-based solutions. He advocates for public-private partnerships, or PPPs, where the government works with private companies
to share costs, share risks.
Exactly.
With those projects.
He also sees a role for institutions like Exim Bank, Thailand's Export-Import Bank, in mobilizing funding.
So not relying solely on government funding, but leveraging that private capital and expertise.
Exactly. He argues that Exim Bank, with its official connections and experience in international finance, can help de-risk projects, attract other commercial banks to participate. He gives an example of a dam project in Laos, where Exim Bank played a key role in coordinating the financing.
But he also acknowledges that some level of government support
is necessary. Especially for those projects that might not generate immediate revenue.
Right.
He gives the example of loads, like the R3 and R9 in Thailand, which haven't implemented toll fees, making it difficult to fund those necessary repairs and maintenance.
So finding that balance between those market principles
Exactly.
and that strategic public investment is key.
You got it.
Okay. So we've covered kind of the what of GMS connectivity, the importance of both that physical and that institutional infrastructure. But what about the how?
The how.
What specific improvements did he recommend?
Well, he highlights two key areas. Streamlining those cross-border goods clearing processes. And facilitating freer flows of migrant workers. He argues that these are essential for realizing the full potential of the GMS as this integrated economic region.
So tackling those institutional bottlenecks.
Exactly.
That hinder that smooth movement of goods and people.
Got to get rid of the friction. He argues that inefficient border procedures add unnecessary costs, delays, and make GMS countries less competitive in global markets.
And when it comes to migrant workers?
Huge issue.
It's a huge issue.
It is.
He sees this huge opportunity for a more efficient and a more humane system.
It needs to be both. That benefits both the sending and the receiving countries.
Because Thailand, like many countries in the region, faces labor shortages in certain sectors.
They do.
While neighboring countries
have surplus labor. Exactly.
It's a match.
It is.
But it's not happening.
It's not happening seamlessly. He suggests a system where migrant workers who meet certain conditions can obtain these longer-term residency permits. Rather than these short-term visas and the constant border crossings. Which would reduce the reliance on middlemen, reduce the risk of exploitation, and also provide businesses with this more stable, reliable workforce.
That's a very practical solution.
I think so.
That addresses both economic and humanitarian concerns.
Absolutely. And he tells a great story.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, about this crisis that occurred after the 2014 coup in Thailand. When many migrant workers fled construction sites out of fear of being arrested during these document checks. And Dr. NARONGCHAI had to personally intervene to ensure their safe return and to reassure them that they were welcome and valued in Thailand.
That's incredible.
It's a good reminder that we're not talking about abstract economic concepts here. We're talking about people's lives.
Their
livelihoods.
It's a powerful point.
For sure.
Now I'm curious to hear his thoughts on the changing global landscape. And what he calls this reconfigured world order. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to dive deeper into his analysis.
Let's go.
Where does this start?
Well, he traces these concerns back to the early 2000s, citing events like those protests against the World Trade Organization in Seattle, and this growing criticism of globalization's impact on developing countries. And he argues that the 2008 financial crisis further fueled this skepticism towards globalization. It highlighted those vulnerabilities of those interconnected financial markets.
So the sense that the benefits of globalization weren't being shared equally. And it had created these new risks and instabilities.
Exactly. And he also mentions this book, Balance, by Glenn Hubbard and Tim Kaine, which argues that the 2008 financial crisis was partly caused by these global trade imbalances, particularly this large trade surplus of China and the corresponding deficits of the United States.
And then, of course, we have this skepticism toward globalization that's continued to grow in recent years with the rise of these populist leaders like Donald Trump and his America First policies.
It's this growing disillusionment with the promises of globalization, particularly among those who feel left behind
by those economic changes.
And the growing rivalry between the U.S. and China also plays a role here.
For sure.
They're competing for economic and technological dominance.
In areas like AI, 5G technology.
Semiconductors.
Semiconductors, yeah.
It's become a major factor in the reconfiguration of this global order.
So a move away from a purely market-driven system
Yes.
to one where national interests and these strategic considerations play a bigger role.
I think that's fair to say.
So a more fractured, unpredictable global landscape.
It is.
How does he believe that Thailand should
Navigate all of this? Well, this new reality.
He argues that the country needs to adapt its foreign and economic policies to address the challenges and the opportunity.
In this reconfigured world.
He stresses the need to focus on economic security, which means ensuring access to essential resources, securing supply chains, and managing financial flows effectively.
So not taking those things for granted anymore, but being more strategic. And proactive.
Exactly. He argues that in a world where globalization is no longer that dominant force, countries need to be more deliberate in securing their economic interests.
And he sees Thailand as particularly vulnerable. He does.
Given its reliance on trade and imported energy.
Thailand's energy consumption is almost entirely reliant on imports.
Wow.
And this makes them vulnerable to those disruptions in global energy markets, which are becoming increasingly volatile.
Due to geopolitics and the energy transition.
Exactly. So finding alternative energy sources, diversifying those supply chains becomes even more crucial.
Absolutely.
He also stresses the need to strengthen relationships with those reliable partners, particularly in Asia and the Middle East, which are becoming increasingly important.
So diversifying those partnerships to reduce reliance on any single country or region.
And hedging against those geopolitical risks.
But he also sees a need for internal adjustments as well. Not just reacting. To those external changes.
But bolstering Thailand's own capabilities.
What does that look like?
He argues that Thailand needs to enhance its domestic production capabilities, improve efficiency.
And embrace new industries like the bio, circular, and green.
The BCG sectors.
The BCG sectors, exactly.
So a two-pronged approach.
It is.
Adapting to the external. While bolstering those internal strengths.
You got it.
And technology plays a key role in all of this.
Absolutely. He emphasizes the need to leverage digital technology to drive those efficiency gains. Create new industries. Empower individuals to participate in that global economy.
So embracing innovation and technology.
It's a path to greater competitiveness.
Now let's shift gears a bit. And talk about one of Dr. NARONGCHAI's key concerns. This idea of missed opportunities.
He talks a lot about this.
He does. What are some of the key setbacks that he identifies?
Well, he points to political instability and disruptions as these major factors that have hindered the country's progress. He specifically mentions the political turmoil surrounding Thaksin Shinawatra's government in the early 2000s, which led to a series of coups.
Constitutional changes that really disrupted this economic policy continuity.
Because those events created a lot of uncertainty.
Tons.
And discouraged long-term investment.
Absolutely. He argues that Thaksin, despite some positive policies, could have done more to steer the country towards that sustainable and inclusive development. And the subsequent political instability has really come at a significant cost to Thailand's economic progress.
So a case of political turmoil, undermining economic potential.
You could say that?
And he also expresses concern about the current centralized power structure.
He does.
Arguing that it goes against this global trend
of decentralization
and individual empowerment. He believes that Thailand needs to move towards this more decentralized system of governance. Where local communities have greater autonomy and responsibility for their own development.
It's a very different approach.
It is.
But he sees that as essential for fostering innovation, empowering citizens, creating this more dynamic and responsive economy.
Despite these setbacks, does Dr. NARONGCHAI remain optimistic about Thailand's future?
I think he does, but with a strong dose of realism. He believes that Thailand has the potential to overcome these challenges and achieve its economic ambitions. But it's going to require a concerted effort from all stakeholders, the government, the private sector, civil society.
Everyone working together.
It's going to take teamwork.
So this belief in Thailand's potential, but also this recognition that realizing that potential.
It's going to require those bold decisions.
Bold decision.
And a commitment to change.
He sees this current moment
Yes.
as a pivotal one.
A pivotal one for Thailand.
A time to reflect on those past mistakes.
Learn from successful models.
Learn from other places.
And chart a new course.
Towards a more prosperous and sustainable future.
That's the hope.
That's a lot to digest.
It is a lot to unpack there.
A lot to unpack, but this gives us such a solid foundation.
It does.
As we move into the next part of our deep dive into Dr. Narongchai's insights.
Can't wait.
What specifically should our listeners be looking forward to?
Well, we're going to delve deeper into his concrete ambitions for Thailand's future.
Okay.
We'll explore his vision for achieving that high growth, breaking free from that middle income trap, and even becoming a member of the OECD.
That's a big one.
It is.
I'm eager to hear those specific recommendations.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
And how he sees Thailand navigating the challenges and opportunities of the 21st century.
It's all ahead.
It is.
He's a problem solver.
Yeah.
He doesn't just analyze the problems, he offers solutions.
Right.
And, he sets a high bar for Thailand, aiming for that high growth, escaping that middle income trap, and even becoming an OECD member.
That's ambitious.
Ambitious, but he believes it's achievable.
What's the magic number?
The magic number.
To make this happen.
He believes a consistent 5% annual growth rate is essential.
Okay.
That's the key.
5%?
And that's where he sees digital technology as a key player.
Okay.
It can drive those efficiency gains across all sectors.
Right.
Empower individuals to create value in these new ways.
So technology isn't just about gadgets.
No, it's not.
It's a fundamental driver of economic transformation.
Exactly. He believes Thailand can leapfrog certain development stages by embracing those digital solutions.
But he also acknowledges that there have been missed opportunities.
There have.
In the past.
Yes.
What does he point to?
Well, he points to a lack of focus and consistency in economic policy.
Right.
He cites examples like the failure of those economic zones.
Right, that we talked about.
And
this slow progress on crucial institutional reforms.
So it's not enough to just have good ideas.
No, it's not.
It's about execution.
It is.
And long-term commitment. Absolutely. He stresses the need for a more strategic and long-term approach to economic development.
Right.
He's very critical of short-term thinking.
Driven by political cycles.
Right. Which he argues really hinders real progress.
This circles back to his call for a more robust national policy strategy.
Exactly.
Who does he envision leading this charge?
He's pretty clear on this. He believes it should be driven by experienced technocrats. Not politicians. He argues that Thailand's political system, with its frequent changes and lack of continuity, makes it difficult to implement the kind of long-term vision and expertise needed
for this complex task.
This is complex stuff.
So this is a call for more stability. And this technocratic approach to economic policymaking.
He sees that as essential for creating this predictable and supportive environment for businesses to flourish and for Thailand to really reach its full economic potential.
It makes you wonder if there are any successful examples of this kind of approach elsewhere.
That's a great question, and one that Dr. Narongchai often raises. He cites examples from countries like Singapore and South Korea, which have managed to achieve that remarkable economic growth through a combination of technocratic expertise, strategic planning, close collaboration between the government and the private sector.
That's the magic formula?
It seems to be.
Yeah, a model worth studying.
For sure.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about one of his key concerns. Inequality.
Inequality, big one.
Yeah, something he's written extensively about.
He has.
And he sees it as a major challenge for Thailand's future.
It is.
What is he particularly worried about?
He's particularly worried about that growing gap between the rich and the poor. And this concentration of wealth and economic power in the hands of a few.
It's a global problem.
It is a global problem.
He argues that this inequality not only undermines social cohesion, but it also hinders economic growth.
In the long run, yes.
How does that happen?
How does inequality hurt economic growth? Well, he points to several factors.
Okay.
First, It limits opportunities
Okay.
for those at the bottom of the income ladder,
Right.
trapping them in this cycle of poverty,
Right.
preventing them from contributing fully to the economy.
Okay.
Second, it can lead to social unrest and instability,
Right.
which can disrupt businesses.
Yeah.
Discourage investments,
Okay.
and third, it can distort markets,
Okay.
create an unlevel playing field,
Right.
favoring those with connections and influence.
Rather than those with merit
Exactly.
and hard work.
Yeah, it's not a fair system.
So this is not just a moral issue.
No,
It's an economic one.
it's both.
It's both.
Yes.
What does he propose as solutions
Solutions.
to address this inequality challenge?
He advocates for a multi-pronged approach. He stresses the importance of investing in education, skills development,
Right.
particularly for those from disadvantaged backgrounds.
Right.
He also calls for strengthening social safety nets,
Okay.
providing greater access to healthcare and other essential services.
So creating a more level playing field from the start
Yes.
and providing support for those who need it the most.
That's the idea, but he also goes beyond these traditional social welfare measures.
Nice.
He argues for this more fundamental shift
Okay.
in economic thinking,
Okay.
moving away from this purely growth-centric model
Okay.
towards one that prioritizes inclusiveness
Right.
and sustainability.
What does that look like?
What does that look like in practice?
And in practice, yeah.
He emphasizes the need to promote decent work
Okay.
and fair labor practices,
Yeah.
greater transparency and accountability
Right.
in government and business,
Right.
and empowering communities to participate in those decisions that affect their lives.
So it's about creating a more equitable and sustainable economic system.
It is.
One that benefits everyone,
Everywhere.
not just a privileged few.
That's the key?
Powerful vision.
I think so.
Now let's shift our focus to another key theme that emerges from his work.
Okay.
The role of the private sector
Yes.
in driving economic development.
Big role to play.
Yeah, he's often spoken about the need for a strong and dynamic private sector.
Absolutely.
But he also emphasizes the importance of responsible business practices.
Yes, he does.
So it's not just about profits,
No, it's not.
but it's also about purpose
Purpose.
and social impact.
He often talks about the concept of shared value,
Okay.
where businesses create economic value in a way
Yeah.
that also creates value for society
Okay.
by addressing those needs and challenges.
This is a win-win situation.
It is.
Businesses can do well by doing good.
That's the idea.
What are some specific examples of what that looks like?
So he cites examples of companies that are investing in renewable energy, reducing their environmental footprint,
Okay.
supporting those local communities.
Okay.
He also points to companies that are creating these innovative products and services
Yeah.
that address social needs, like affordable health care,
Okay.
access to education.
So it's about businesses taking this more holistic view
Absolutely.
of their role in society,
Yes.
recognizing that their long-term success
Is intertwined.
is intertwined with the well-being of the community they operate in.
He believes that businesses have this unique opportunity
Yeah.
to leverage their resources, their expertise, and their innovation
Right.
to create that positive social impact.
Mhm.
And doing so is not only the right thing to do,
Yeah.
but it's good for business.
Good for everyone.
Good for everyone.
Now let's turn our attention to another area where he's been particularly vocal.
Okay.
The need for education reform.
Education. Big one.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah.
He's often said that education is the key
It
to
is.
Thailand's future.
The key to everything.
But he's also been critical
Oh, yes.
of the current system.
What does he say?
What does he say? What are his thoughts?
He believes the current system is too focused on rote learning,
Oh, okay.
memorization,
Right.
not enough on critical thinking,
Okay.
creativity,
Yeah.
problem-solving skills.
This is not setting kids up for success in the 21st century.
He argues that this approach is ill-suited
Right.
for the demands of this 21st century economy.
Right. We need adaptability, innovation, lifelong learning,
All of it.
all of it.
Exactly.
So this call for a more holistic
Holistic.
and future-oriented approach.
Exactly.
Right.
He emphasizes the need to cultivate those skills that are difficult to automate,
Right.
like critical thinking,
Right.
creativity,
Creativity,
communication,
collaboration,
all of those soft skills, as they're called.
soft skills, but essential skills.
Essential.
He also sees a need for greater emphasis on STEM education, recognizing that these fields are driving innovation and economic growth.
That's where the jobs of the future are going to be.
But it's not just about the technical skills.
It's not just about the technical skills.
Right.
It's about those values.
Values, character.
Character, he talks about heartware.
Heartware.
Cultivating not just the intellectual skills, but the ethical values, social responsibility. Empathy, compassion.
These are things that you can't necessarily learn from a textbook.
You can't. And he believes that these qualities are essential for building a just and harmonious society.
One that can navigate the complexities of the 21st century?
Exactly.
So this vision of education goes beyond just preparing students for jobs.
It does.
It's about them becoming responsible citizens.
Yes.
And contributing
to
the greater good.
It's about building a better society.
Powerful message, and one that I think resonates deeply.
I think so too.
With anyone who cares about Thailand's future and the well-being of its people. We've covered a lot of ground so far.
We have.
From Dr. Narongchai's early work on trade and development.
Right.
To his insights on inequality.
Yes.
The role of the private sector.
Private sector.
The need for education reform.
Yes. Big topics.
I want to circle back to something that we touched on earlier.
Yes.
His ambition for Thailand to become an OECD member.
Big goal.
What does he see as the key benefits?
The benefits,
of achieving this goal?
He believes it would be a significant milestone for Thailand.
Okay.
Signaling its arrival as a developed economy.
Okay.
Giving it greater access to global networks and opportunities.
So it's kind of this validation of the country's progress.
And the symbol of its commitment to good governance, economic competitiveness, and social well-being.
But it's not just about prestige.
No, it's not just about prestige.
There are tangible benefits as well.
There are, yeah.
Like what?
Well, OECD membership would give Thailand greater influence in shaping global economic rules and standards. It would also provide access to a wealth of knowledge and expertise from other OECD countries, particularly in areas like education, healthcare, and environmental policy.
It's learning from the best.
Learning from the best.
Yeah.
Becoming part of this community of leading nations.
It sounds great. But it's also a challenging process.
It is, yeah.
Right? There are strict criteria that countries need to meet to qualify.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of those?
Well, the OECD has high standards for economic performance, governance, and social indicators.
So Thailand would need to address some of those long-standing challenges.
They would, like inequality, corruption, environmental degradation.
So it's not just about ticking boxes.
It's not.
It's about a genuine commitment.
It is.
To reform and improvement.
He sees OECD membership as this catalyst for positive change.
Okay.
This goal that can drive reforms.
Okay.
And inspire greater ambition.
But he acknowledges it's a long-term process.
It is a long-term process.
That requires sustained effort and political will.
Exactly.
It sounds like a worthwhile challenge.
I think so.
One that could benefit Thailand in many ways.
I think so, too.
We've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive.
We have a lot of information.
A lot of information.
Yes.
Exploring Dr. Narongchai's vision for Thailand's future.
Right.
His insights on inequality.
Inequality.
The role of the private sector.
The private sector, yes.
And the challenges and opportunities.
Of OECD membership.
It's
a lot.
It is, but we still have more to uncover.
We do. We're not done yet.
We're not done yet in our final part.
Okay, last one.
We'll delve into his thoughts on the future of work.
Big one.
The impact of automation and artificial intelligence.
Can't forget about AI.
And his recommendations for navigating
the complexities
of this 21st century economy.
Sounds fascinating.
It's going to be good.
I can't wait to hear his perspective.
Yeah, his insights are really valuable on these critical issues.
Oh, absolutely.
And what it all means for Thailand's journey.
Yes.
In the years ahead. It's amazing to think this is already the final part.
I know, right?
Of our deep dive.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It does.
Discussing economics,
exactly.
With Dr. Narongchai.
We've spent the last 2 parts really exploring the insights of Dr. Narongchai Akrakasane.
A true giant.
In
the field.
In Thailand's economic landscape. And we've covered a lot.
We have.
We've covered so much ground, from his early days shaping ASEAN's economic agenda.
Right.
To his vision for Thailand's future in this reconfigured world.
Yeah, it's been really remarkable to trace the evolution of his thinking.
Yeah.
Seeing how he connects that historical context,
right.
economic theory, and his own personal experiences.
To offer a truly unique perspective.
Yeah, no one else has that.
And one thing that's really struck me throughout this whole deep dive
is
his unwavering belief in Thailand's potential.
Oh, he's a believer.
He is.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to point out the challenges.
Right.
And the missed opportunities.
Those are important to acknowledge.
But there's this clear sense of optimism.
I think so too.
That runs through all of his work.
It's not a blind optimism.
No.
It's grounded in this deep understanding of Thailand's strengths, recognizing those global forces at play.
Yeah.
And belief in that power of strategic action and collaboration.
It's that combination.
Yeah, you bring it all together.
Right. It's not shying away from those complexities.
No.
But offering this roadmap.
A way forward.
For navigating them.
Yeah.
A path towards a more prosperous and sustainable future.
That's the goal.
And one of the key themes that emerges from his work is this importance of human capital.
People. People, yeah.
Education, skills development.
Got to invest in the people.
This culture of lifelong learning as essential for Thailand to thrive.
Absolutely.
In the 21st century.
And especially now.
As we enter this era of rapid technological change.
Right.
Automation, AI transforming industries.
It's happening so fast.
It is.
And the nature of work itself.
It's changing everything.
What are his thoughts on how Thailand should adapt
to this evolving landscape?
Well,
he acknowledges that potential disruption that automation and AI can bring.
Right.
But he also sees these as opportunities for Thailand to kind of leapfrog ahead, create new industries and jobs.
That's exciting.
It is, but he emphasizes the need to invest in education and training programs that equip people
with the right skills. Exactly.
To succeed in this digital economy.
So it's not about resisting that technological change.
No.
It's about embracing it.
Yeah.
Shaping it in a way that benefits Thailand's workforce and economy.
So shifting away from these traditional models of education that focus on rote learning.
The memorization,
And memorization.
Towards something more flexible.
Right.
More adaptable approaches.
That emphasize those critical thinking.
The creativity.
Problem solving.
Lifelong learning.
All of it. It all comes back to that. And this ties into his broader vision of empowering those individuals to become these active participants.
Active participants in the economy.
Yeah, not passive recipients of government assistance.
He's got this belief that everyone has the potential to contribute to society, create value, and that it's the role of the government and the private sector to create an environment that fosters this entrepreneurial spirit and self-reliance.
It's inspiring.
It is.
But it's challenging.
Very much so.
It requires a fundamental shift.
A shift in mindset.
A
willingness to do things differently.
Which brings us back
full circle
to this need for a clear and coherent national strategy.
It all comes back to that.
That guides Thailand's economic and social development.
In the years ahead.
He's been very vocal about this.
Oh, very much so.
Arguing that Thailand has often lacked
that long-term vision.
That
consistent approach to policymaking.
Especially when it comes to economic development.
It's been a problem.
And he believes that this lack of strategic direction has contributed
to those missed opportunities.
And those challenges.
Yeah, it's held them back.
That Thailand has faced.
So what's the solution?
What is the solution?
Well, he's a firm believer
in
this collaborative approach.
Okay.
One that brings together the best minds.
Okay.
From the government, private sector, academia.
Civil society.
Get everyone involved.
So not top down.
More inclusive. Bring everyone to the table.
And participatory process.
He believes that this kind of approach is not only more democratic, but also more likely to produce a strategy.
That's ambitious.
But achievable. That's the sweet spot.
And what are some of the key elements that he sees as essential for this national strategy?
He highlights several themes.
Okay.
Sustainability.
Inclusiveness. Innovation.
And resilience.
Okay, so Thailand's future prosperity
depends on all of this.
Depends on its ability to create an economy that is environmentally sustainable.
Socially equitable.
Technologically advanced.
And adaptable to all those challenges of a rapidly changing world.
It's a tall order.
It is.
but one that resonates
I think it is.
deeply with a lot of Thais.
I think so.
As we wrap up this deep dive,
Right.
I want to leave our listeners
Okay.
with one final question to ponder.
Hit me.
Given everything that we've learned from Dr. NARONGCHAI's insights,
Decades of experience.
what specific actions can we take
As individuals.
to contribute to Thailand's economic and social progress?
It's a great question.
Whether we're business leaders, educators, policymakers,
Right.
concerned citizens,
What can we do
what role can we play
to make things better?
in shaping a brighter future?
It's a great question, and I think it gets at the heart of what his work is all about.
Yeah.
Empowering individuals to take ownership of their own future.
Right.
Contribute to the well-being of their communities and their country.
It's been a privilege to explore his ideas.
It has.
And I hope this deep dive has inspired our listeners to learn more, engage in these conversations,
Yeah, we need more of that.
and play an active role
Yeah.
in shaping Thailand's journey in the years to come.
Dr. NARONGCHAI gives us that roadmap.
Yeah.
But we all have to take the wheel
We do.
and steer towards that future we want.
Thank you for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.